Corbin Burnes, the top free agent starting pitcher on the market, seems to be nearing his decision. The Giants, Blue Jays, and a quote-unquote mystery team are still in the mix. Looks like his candidacy could be heading to a finish, hopefully today. Bellinger's market seems to be the Yankees, and for the Mariners as well. That trade and more next here at the Upside. We have one small update on Corbin Burnes. We already knew that they were down to 3 teams, the Giants being considered the favorite there, Blue Jays still in the mix, and a quote-unquote mystery team. John Heyman was speculating that the Rangers could be that mystery team. However, the Giants were still his favorite to go out there and sign him. Well, yesterday, after we logged off the air anyway, I found some other articles that had mentioned a deleted Instagram, Facebook post, one of those two anyway, where he had posted a picture of himself on the Golden Gate Bridge, saying, feels like home, that was liked by San Francisco Giants pitcher Logan Webb. This to me seems to solidify that things are moving positively for the San Francisco Giants, and what an offseason they've had. Look at the turnaround they've had with just bringing in Buster Posey. 5 years of basically languishing in free agent hell with Farhan Zaidi, a destination that nobody really wanted to go to, that only had a lot of money, and they just went there to try to rebuild their free agent value. You can think about that with Carlos Rodon, Blake Snell, among others. And basically, if you're a guy that left out on the free agent market and you still needed somebody to pay you some money, you would go to the Giants after everybody else had been exhausted. No longer is that the case. The Giants have done a nice job this offseason picking a guy that they wanted to bring in Willie Adames, 7 years, 182. Picking another guy here in Corbin Burnes. We'll see what his number turns out to be, and then we'll see what other options they're going to go with. But they've done a nice job turning that franchise around in a very short period of time. Congratulations to the Giants for the work they've already done. They still have to get Corbin Burnes across the finish line, but a great signing if they can get it. What are they getting? They're getting a Cy Young caliber starting pitcher to frontline that rotation along with Webb, an up-and-coming lineup as well, and now they have some depth in that lineup. They finally have somebody to put that centerpiece in that lineup there in Willie Adames. They're going to try to bring in Kyle Tucker next year. This is a team on the up-and-come. We'll see where that ultimately ends up going. Welcome in, welcome in. We got 45, 50 of you guys already with us on a Sunday afternoon football. Not exactly living up to the hype, unfortunately, so I thought I'd go ahead and do our live. I was waiting for some news to actually happen. We only had a couple of small moves over the last 12 hours or so since we were last live. So I appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to get into quite a long show today. I went through a bunch of different headlines that are out there right now. Some things you may not have noticed on the free agent market. I went ahead and made notes for you guys as well. A little bit different format than what we've done in our other videos, but we're going to try to make this one and make it as informative as we possibly can for you. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe as well. If you're new here, follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. We'll start at the top anyway with the comments, just kind of go through these. Welcome in Bryce, Emmerich, Mark, John. Really appreciate you guys joining us once again. You predict Burnes will sign with the Giants. That's my expectation at this point. John, will the Yankees trade for a first baseman today? I believe they're going to happen any time now. We'll get into the Yankees specifically and their first base market later in the show. But I do believe they very much are in there for Cody Bellinger. The question is there if they're going to blink on money or if the Cubs are going to blink on the money. That's the question there. You think Jays or Giants for Burnes? I would agree there. But again, there's still a mystery team. Nobody will sign today. I don't think so. I think we're going to see a couple of signings before the end of the day. Willard, welcome back. You know, I believe the Astros will get better this season. And next, trust me, Yankees and Dodgers enjoy the run of success because Houston will be back, and I promise you, you'll see the Astros back in the playoffs. Gotta love that from you, Willard. I know you're a Houston Astros diehard fan there, and I get your faith in your team. So, you know, I understand, you know, that you're realizing now that the Dodgers are probably the behemoth on the National League side, that the Yankees probably have your number as currently constructed, but the Astros are going to still be hanging around for a division crown, and who knows, they might be able to hang on to Framber Valdez for the long term. Who knows who else they might be able to bring in free agency, whether it be Walker or Santander or trade for Arenado. They have a lot of irons in the fire. Welcome in, George. I saw your comment on our video. That kind of what spurred me to look into a couple of different things, so I appreciate you pointing that out. If you guys want to comment on our videos after we're off the air, I'd be more than happy to read those comments. I try to read as many of them as possible. Rumors is the mystery team Boston. If Posey gets approval from ownership to go over $250 million, the Giants may be in the driver's seat. I think they're already in the driver's seat. I think the Jays already have a significant offer on the table for him. I think the Giants are a little bit under that number from the Blue Jays, so it wouldn't be surprised if the Blue Jays finished as the top bidder there. But the mystery team being the Red Sox isn't necessarily a mystery to me. To me, they were a third or fourth place team in that running anyway. I wouldn't necessarily call that a mystery, but they were in there for Burns all the way up through Garrett Crochet and even after it to a certain extent. It's only the last day or two that they've really dropped out, according to most national media reporters. But for me, it wouldn't be a surprise if Boston turns out to be that mystery team. John, are the Yankees going to get Bellinger and Bregman? I would say Bellinger is far more likely. Bregman has some question marks there. I still think the three frontrunners for him are the Detroit Tigers, the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Boston Red Sox. Welcome in, John. I still have faith the Rangers are not done yet. I don't think they're done. I think they're still going to add some more pieces this offseason. I got quite a few names that they've been connected to over the last 48 hours anyway. It's going to be a great update for y'all Rangers fans out there as well. Bryce, if Adames would have waited for Soto to sign first, you've gotten more money from another team. Quite possibly, but maybe he just wanted to go to San Francisco. Really liked the pitch that they gave him. Really liked how they were going to use him. So you can't really fault the guy for going to a place that he wanted and signing for a number he was comfortable with. After all, he had to sign on the dotted line and say, hey, I like this deal for me. And hey, maybe this allows the Giants to still be in those types of conversations for Burns and for Tucker next year because of the ability to sign him for that deal that they did. Willard, as far as I'm concerned, Houston may trade Tucker and lose Bregman, but last time I checked, Astros have Jordan and Altuve, a new third baseman from the Cubs, and Houston will be back. They will be. They're still going to be very competitive. I like the trade that they made with Kyle Tucker. They got double the value for me for what Tucker was really worth. Welcome back, Tato. Appreciate you joining us once again. Welcome back, JG. Correa going to get traded? Possibly. I think that's going to have to wait a little bit, probably till January before we get any headwinds one way or the other as to whether or not he's going to be moved. But we might get an out-of-nowhere trade like we've gotten the last few days anyway. Jake Berger to the Rangers. We saw Jimenez to the Blue Jays. We saw a couple of out-of-nowhere trades. Devin Williams finally coming through. That kind of kick-started things on the relief market. We'll dig into that and more here shortly. Welcome in, Hayden. I'm shocked if you're shocked the Bellinger trade hasn't happened yet. I'm slightly shocked at that, mainly because there's basically deals already agreed to, both with the Yankees and it sounds like with the Mariners. It's more about the money issue right now. Players sound like they've been agreed to, what they'd be comfortable going one direction or the other. We got a spammer in there. We'll have our moderator take care of that one real quick. But anyway, sorry, trying to scroll up past the spammer. Okay. As far as Bellinger trade there, I still think he's going to get moved. It's just a matter of whether or not the Cubs eat the money or if the Yankees end up taking the full contract or the Mariners end up taking the full contract. For instance, the Cubs have interest in Luis Castillo. If they go for that type of a trade, they wouldn't have to do that type of a move. So for me, I think that there's a move to be made for both sides. It's just a matter of where they come down on the money more than anything else right now. If the Yankees are willing to take the money of Bellinger right now, I think the deal would already be done and he'd be a member of the Yankees. So I wouldn't necessarily fault the Yankees for holding firm to a line because they're trying to do other things in free agency as well. They've done a nice job building out this roster. Even with the loss of Juan Soto, they've done a nice job bringing in Max Fried, a nice job bringing in Williams, but they have work to do in that lineup right now. They need at least a couple of bats. We'll see where they ultimately go to get them. What's good, buddy? Pretty much everything right now. A lot of baseball news to get into. Not a whole lot of actual transactions, but a lot of rumors that I've kind of been gathering for you over the last few hours since nothing's really been happening, and we'll get into those in just a moment. Are there going to be any new trades today, or news on trades today? I do believe we'll have at least one. We did see one anyway with the Red Sox and Pirates already. Very small trade, though. Let's see. St. Vintage to the Mets go with a Marte Beatty DH or bring back Winker. Possibly they are looking to bring in a bat, and they're hoping to offload Marte. It'd be tough for them to move off of Marte's deal unless they're willing to eat the majority, if not all, of that deal. They've shown the willingness to do that before, so I wouldn't be surprised if they ate the entirety of that deal just to bring in a prospect to free up some roster space. Whichever combination they ultimately go. Signing Jock to a 2-year deal to DH. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Jock Peterson on the Rangers. I still think he would be a worse fit as a DH only guy. I think you still have to be able to use him in some capacity in the outfield. I think that would limit your options, especially if you're trying to bring in Alonso and then bring in Vlad Guerrero Jr. next year. So I would try to steer clear of Jock Peterson if I'm the Mets. You hope the Rangers don't get Jock right there with you, Mr. Mojo. If you guys are new here, got 70, 80 guys with us right now. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you are joining us for this first time. Gained about 70 subscribers yesterday. Just an absolute great day having so many new people join us. So please feel free to hit that like and subscribe. Willard, maybe that's why baseball loved the biggest markets, helped fill the coffers of sponsors. I don't buy into all the conspiracy stuff there. $1 billion TV deal, no team, don't stand a chance unless you're the Yankees or Dodgers. Again, I don't buy into that either. St. Vintage, Mike Francesa, the biggest Yankee homer, hates the free deal lengthwise. I don't mind it. The reason being is because it actually lowers the AAV on the deal. In 8 years, that deal is probably going to look like what a 5-year, $20 million deal looks like now. And I don't think it'll be that bad even at that point. Fried isn't necessarily a quote-unquote strikeout-only pitcher. He's the type of pitcher who can pitch to contact and induce weak contact. I think he's going to be just fine even throughout the length of that deal. The question that I'm sure he has is, of course, with injuries. But he's been one of the best, most durable pitchers for the last 5 years. You got to wonder about injuries because the last year hasn't exactly gone swimmingly from an injury standpoint. But he goes out there and posts when he is healthy. So, I'm not necessarily worried about Max Fried. I think he's going to be just fine. And at $27 million, if the Yankees if there's one team in Major League Baseball that should be able to afford a $27 million albatross on their roster, it's the Yankees. I mean, the Dodgers could handle it. The Mets could handle it. To say, the Yankees are poor at this point would be a complete misrepresentation of that front office and of their ownership group. They can handle that kind of signing. It's more just, whining to whine, I guess is the best way to put it. Hey, we're the Yankees. We should be judged the same as the rest of the league. No, you're the Yankees. We're going to judge you as one of the super payrolls in Major League Baseball against the likes of the Dodgers and the Mets and teams of that ilk. We're not going to judge you against the transactions of the Pittsburgh Pirates because the Pirates have to operate completely differently with a payroll structure very differently than the way you have to operate. So I get why the Pirates might not be able to handle an 8-year commitment with $27 million a year handled there, but we're talking about a team in the New York Yankees that are a super team that have a lot of financial wherewithal to go out there and sign, top-level free agents. They just were trying to sign Juan Soto for over $760 million. Don't cry poor to me, Yankees. Sorry, not buying it. When do I see Roki signing? That's going to happen between January 15th and January 23rd. The reason being that's when the international bonus pools start to free up once again. Have you heard anything about Hee-Sung Kim? Last we heard about him was for the Giants. Any news on him? Not as of yet. I've heard a few different teams looking for a defensive second baseman or shortstop. Those are teams he's going to fit on. Mariners have been mentioned as a possible fit. Padres to a certain extent. But the Giants seem like a good fit there as well. Machiavelli, think the Mets getting Castillo. I would put them probably as the third or fourth team in the mix there. I still think there are other teams that match up a little bit better in a Castillo trade, but if the Mets are willing to eat the entirety of that of Castillo's deal and give up a few decent prospects, I could see it. But if I'm the Mets, I would rather go out in free agency and acquire my starting pitching that way rather than having to give up some prospects in order to do it. They have the financial wherewithal to go out there and make some big time signings. Alrighty, I told you guys I had a big show planned for you guys. Now that we've gotten through a bunch of your comments anyway, I want to start off. We already talked about Corbin Burnes. I want to get to Pete Alonso. Now, I've been telling you guys for the last few days that Pete Alonso looks like a heavy favorite to go back to the New York Mets, and my guess was that it was going to be around around 5 years, $135 million. Well, you look at Freddie Freeman's deal that he got. He got $150 million. I want to say for 5 or 6 years, right around $30 million anyway. It sounds like the market might be getting to the 6-year mark at $185 million now for Pete Alonso. I still think he's a favorite to go back to the Mets, but the money is certainly jumping up there for Alonso. He's not a great defender. Doesn't exactly hit for great average. He does ground into a lot of double plays, but that power does play, and that's why they're going to pay him that much. I don't think that a team like the Yankees are necessarily a great fit. I still think the Mets are going to try to get this one done pretty quickly here, I would expect before Christmas. But Alonso's market certainly has jumped up just in the last week or so since the Juan Soto signing. Now, as far as the predictions before the season, I would have expected him to sign around 5 for 125, maybe at the high end 5 for 135. Now we're getting into the 6 for 180, 185 range. I wonder how much of this is due to the Juan Soto effect. How much money really is out there in the game right now for them to go out there and sign. Now, sure, the Mets have, seemingly endless coffers right now, but at a certain point, it still costs real money. You don't want to pay the same, say $20 for the same cheeseburger you can get for $5. I'm not saying that there's another Pete Alonso in this market, but what I'm saying is you don't want to bid against yourself and overpay a guy just because you absolutely have to have this guy back. And I don't think the Mets are necessarily doing that. I just wonder how much the money in the game right now, especially with the signing of Juan Soto, is driving up these values right now because free agents are doing very well this offseason. One other factor I want to point to is how the smaller market teams that we generally consider to be a miss in free agency, teams that don't necessarily invest. Look at the Kansas City Royals last year, were the second highest spending team in free agency. This offseason, teams that are not expected to contend at all have already made significant changes to their pitching staff, with Luis Severino going to the Oakland A's or Sacramento A's. You get Kikuchi going to the Angels. They make the trade for Jeffrey Springs going to the A's. Teams are investing at the very end of these standings right now, and then you get these teams that are competing for postseason positioning, wild card standings, possibly a World Series. Money in the game is certainly flowing, and we're going to see Pete Alonso do very well. Prediction right now for me is going to be 6 for 185 back to the Mets. That's where I have him ultimately going. I think Ken Rosenthal was the one who also upped his prediction to that same number. I'm right there with him. The money seems to be flowing right now, and Pete Alonso is really going to benefit here. 1 year later, we might see Vlad Guerrero Jr. really benefit as well. We'll get into his candidacy here next. Let's go ahead and do that right now, actually. Vlad Guerrero Jr., there's some reports that he turned down a $340 million contract extension offer from the Blue Jays. If that is true, one way or the other, if that is true, that tells you his market is significantly higher than what Freeman is making right now. And you got to wonder, is the position versatility, the impact of the bat, the money from the game in Soto, how high could he really go in free agency? Now, I still don't think we're going to get anywhere close to $500 million, but I'm beginning to think 400 is very reachable now for Vlad Guerrero Jr., especially if we're getting Pete Alonso 6 for 185. Guerrero is a much better player, better defensive versatility. And I think the Mets, even if they signed Alonso, would still be in the market for Guerrero. So once he hits free agency, I think he's going to do fantastically. St. Vintage, if Cohen wants Pete, he'll get Pete. It's that simple. I agree there. Willard, okay, Mets and Yankees and Dodgers, they are the super teams out there right now anyway. Paul Delivers, welcome in. I think this is the first time I've seen you chatting there. So if you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Really does help us out. Cohen probably holding off on Alonso so he can throw the bag at Vladdy next year. I don't think he's holding off because of a money issue at all, Paul. I think if he wanted Alonso, he's going to throw the bag at him, and then if he wants Guerrero next year, he'll throw another bag at him. There's nothing to preclude him from going out there and getting both. Honestly, I think if they sign Alonso, there's no reason why they wouldn't try to get Guerrero as well, because they could probably flex him over to third base for a year or two. Once Alonso's no longer any help in the field, you flex him over to DH, you move Guerrero over to first, and then you bring in a third baseman. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. John, with Duran and Foscue, why aren't the Rangers checking into the Castillo market? They already have a pretty good pitching staff. I don't think they're necessarily going to Castillo. Now, Burns is a different animal. Got another spammer there that'll be taken care of shortly. But as far as the trade market, I think the Rangers are looking for a corner outfield bat and bullpen before they go anywhere else. If there's an opportunity to strike on a starting pitcher, I think that's where they would love to do it with Corbin Burns. But unless there's an opportunity that just falls in their lap, kind of like what happened with Nathan Eovaldi when they got him in free agency a couple of years ago, I don't think they're going to go out there and spend on, say, like a Sean Manaea at this point. Maybe Andrew Heaney if his market comes back to them, but they're not going to go out there and trade a couple of their, top prospects, major league roster, versatile players in Duran, Foscue, Smith, those type of players for a guy that's making $20+ million, even though he is probably a number 3 in the Rangers rotation. And it's going to be tough to trade within the division. Not that the Mariners and Rangers haven't done it before. It'd just be a little bit unnecessary, another unnecessary hurdle for them to try to clear. And I think the other teams in the Castillo market are going to offer more than what the Rangers would be comfortable giving. Specifically, the Baltimore Orioles. We'll get into that shortly. All three have billion-dollar TV deals. Every other team don't have it. They do have pretty good TV deals. That's just an advantage of being in a big market, Willard. It's just the way it goes. I mean, Houston is the number 4 market in the United States. I mean, and we're talking about Jim Crane crying poor. Come on now. Houston is the number 4 television market in the country. Let's fix it. Alrighty, let's see here. Dodger Boy 12, welcome in. Where do you think Tanner Scott is going? I think he's going to your Dodgers. I think he's probably going to sign there probably in the next week or two. I would expect a deal relatively soon because we already saw the Devin Williams deal already go through. I think the Dodgers' top target was Devin Williams. I think Gavin Lux probably would have been part of the trade going out, but they need to add another closer to that bullpen, somebody at least with some closing experience, depending on how they want to use them. Tanner Scott could be the closer, Trinan could be the closer, but they still need more depth in that bullpen. Yankees are said to have interest. A couple of pundits out there are predicting the Rangers to overspend everybody, offer him 4 at 70. I don't see the Rangers going that far. I think they'd rather go the Kirby Yates route and go the 1 year $15 million or 2 years $25 for Kirby Yates, rather than going at the top of the market, 4 for 70 for something like that. I don't see them going that far, but there is a run on relievers that's going to happen very quickly. Once they start going, we could see the vast majority of that run happen within a day or two. So, once we see those signings start happening, expect them to come rapidly once they start going. St. Vintage, Cohen is a real Mets fan. Besides being an owner, he's going to do everything it takes. Couldn't agree more. Mariana, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us for the first time. If you're new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Got 110 with us right now, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe, it really does help us out. What do you think the Jays are going to do? I think the Jays are throwing money at all these top-level free agents, and nobody's bit down yet on that contract offer. That worries me a little bit about their future. It tells me that this is shades of what happened with Farhan Zaidi with the San Francisco Giants. If they get Burns or if they get Bregman, I think that changes the complete narrative around that team. Bregman, I think, would be the perfect signing for them this offseason because it gives them a big bat for that lineup, gives them some leadership. I think it would give them a good chance of winning, or at least winning enough to get to the postseason and possibly save the front office jobs. If they don't, and they are terrible by the trade deadline, they could easily turn around and peddle Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. if they don't think they're going to sign him. And the best part about the deal is if they move, Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. are unable to sign them in free agency, all you do with Bregman is slide him over to shortstop. You got Jimenez and Bregman up the middle, and you go forward from there. Now, I still don't agree with the Jimenez trade at all. I think they should have kept on to Horowitz and just spent the money elsewhere. I think that's part of the problem here is that it's seen as a little bit of a desperation move to make the move for Jimenez. And that doesn't look good when you're trying to lure free agents. You have a decent rotation right now. It could be improved with the addition of Corbin Burns, but I think Bregman is the perfect piece for that Blue Jays organization. Paul, I wonder if the Red Sox really want to trade Casas. I think they do. I think they're looking for an upgrade offensively, whether that be bringing in another third baseman in Bregman and moving Devers over to first base, making Casas available via trade, possibly for a relief pitcher or another starter. That's in the works as well. They were willing to trade a guy like Wilyer Abreu in a trade for Garrett Crochet. Ultimately, they were able to do it for some lower-level prospects and be able to hold on to Abreu and Roman Anthony. Really like the move that the Red Sox made for Crochet, but the Red Sox have a lot of irons in the fire, much like the Blue Jays, much like the Orioles. We'll see which direction they choose. Welcome back, Cheese. Nothing is happening. When can we expect the next move? I would still expect one today. It's Sunday after all. I'd still expect them to try to get a couple of things done. We're a week and a half away from Christmas right now, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to try to get most of their business done before then. So don't be surprised if you see the run on relievers sometime in the next week and a half. I would expect Bregman, Burns, Bellinger, all those decisions to be made before the end of the week. So I'm expecting some movement here relatively soon. So got 130 of you guys with us right now. Appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like and subscribe. Let's see how many people we can get to join us this afternoon. We'll be live with you guys for quite a while. I got quite a show planned for you guys today. In case you guys are just joining us, we covered Corbin Burns. Looks like the Giants are the favorites to bring him in. And Pete Alonso has now seen his market reach upwards of $180 million. At least that's the expectation on the market. I'm still expecting him to go back to the Mets. Sounds like it could be for 6 years, 185. Another spammer there. We'll get that taken care of for you guys here in just a moment. But appreciate you guys joining us today. It's been a lot of fun already chatting with you guys. We've only been on the air for about half an hour already, and we've got 130 people in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us, and we're going to have quite the show for you guys. But St. Vintage seen Josh Bell in Red Sox rumors earlier. That's kind of a minor signing for me at this point. He's kind of a bigger name than he is player at this point. There of the first basemen that are available just in free agency, I'd probably say there's about 8 that are better options than Josh Bell on the market currently. I think Walker, Alonso, of course. Other first basemen include Goldschmidt, Turner, Solano, even Connor Joe at this point. Anthony Rizzo, Joey Gallo had a better year than him as well. Gurriel is around the same level of free agent, but for the price, maybe they just want to go cheaper at first base to give him a platoon option or at least a backup option if they move on from Casas. But we'll see which direction they go. Third item I really want to get into is the Bellinger talks. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it sounds like their deals have already been agreed to with both the Mariners and with the Yankees from the Chicago Cubs. It's more a matter of the money in the deal. Players sound like they've already been agreed to who they're comfortable giving up for these in these trades. But for me, the money is where the issue is. You look at the Yankees; they're trying to save money to be able to go out there and sign additional free agents, make some flexibility moves for them. But as far as the Mariners, they have a very strict budget right now of $15 million this offseason. That's why it looks like this rotation, the best in Mariners history, is going to have to be, dismantled just a little bit. And Castillo would be one great way to increase their flexibility financially if they wanted to bring in a bat without having to add additional payroll. Moving Castillo for Bellinger and possibly a piece in return might be the best way to do it. For the Yankees side of things, they don't really want to eat the entirety of that Bellinger contract. We'll see how they ultimately decide to go about this offseason. If they decide, hey, we're willing to bite down on Bellinger, then I think he'll get traded very quickly here. If they're not, we could see a little bit of a staring game. John Heyman anyway said that it's a bit of a who blinks first contest right now for him. So we'll see what happens. Let us know in the chat where you guys think Bellinger goes. For me, I still think the Yankees are the most likely team. Heyman says they're still viewed as the favorite to be able to get him. They have the bigger financial flexibility there, and they're going to have to give up less off of their Major League roster, whereas the Seattle Mariners would probably have to give up Castillo in that type of a deal. I still think the Yankees have to be seen as the front runner there, but appreciate you guys joining us as well. Hit that like and subscribe. Another item I wanted to get to was the Castillo rumors themselves. We just touched on Bellinger for Castillo, what that could possibly look like, but there are 4 teams that have reached out to the Seattle Mariners in regards to Luis Castillo. First, the Baltimore Orioles. They're probably going to lose Corbin Burnes in free agency. That leaves Sean Manaea as probably the best option on the board. I still would consider Luis Castillo the better option to be the number 1 in that rotation. I still think they need to do better. I think they should have been in there for Corbin Burnes all along and gotten a long-term deal done. But as it stands right now, they have not been able to do so. So, for me, Luis Castillo, if they don't sign Burnes, Castillo, Cease, Flaherty, those are some of the top options out there along with Manaea. Other teams that have reached out for Castillo include the Red Sox, the Mets, and the Cubs. We already talked about the Cubs portion of this. Red Sox are an interesting name here because, again, maybe they're looking to offload Casas, and if they are willing to do that, maybe that solves the first base issue for the Mariners, gives them some offense. Mariners might have to eat, say, $10 million of that deal for Castillo to allow the Red Sox to take it on and see what the value really holds. But that would be a fair trade, I think, for both sides. Maybe you have to add a little bit on either side here or there. But overall, not a bad option. Appreciate you guys joining us today. We'll see if our moderator can take care of that spammer in our chat. Really would appreciate that if you wouldn't mind, moderator. But that's kind of where things stand with Castillo. Next item we need to get to is the Houston Astros in their pursuit of Nolan Arenado. They just made the trade of Kyle Tucker to bring in Paredes and a couple of prospects. Great deal overall for Houston. Absolutely love the deal. A++ for them. However, they now have some holes that they need to go out there and fill, and I think they're going to do so both in free agency and via trade. I think they're going to offload a little bit more salary with Ryan Presley. That should give them the flexibility to bring in a guy like Christian Walker, who they really targeted at the deadline last year, that they really value as a first base option. And then as far as a reliever, maybe they could go in the bullpen and see what else they can add as far as an 8th inning setup guy. They've been connected to a couple of former Astros guys, Stanek and Maton as well. And then, of course, the Nolan Arenado piece. This is the most important right now for the Houston Astros. They are seen as the favorite for Nolan Arenado. Cardinals don't want to retain any of that money. And the reason the Astros make some sense here is because they didn't take the money of Suzuki. Because of that, maybe they don't have to give up a whole lot of prospects in order to bring in a guy like Nolan Arenado. I think he'd be an impact bat for them. I think he'd be a difference maker along with Paredes, but we'll see where they ultimately go. Let me see here if I can get this solved. I don't know if my moderator can see the chat at the moment. But anyway, that's kind of where things stand with Arenado. Other teams that are said to be in the mix, he has already waived his no trade clause for 6 teams, including the Angels, Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants, the Mets, and I'm forgetting one other one. But primarily West Coast teams. The Angels were the surprise out of that group that he'd be willing to go there. Reason being is because they aren't a team in contention, and it sounds like he wants to go to a contending team. He hadn't really discussed the possibility of going to the Yankees. He might be willing to waive it to go there. Yankees need to address that lineup. And Arenado, if they don't sign Bregman, would be one great way of solving their third base needs. It does remind me a little bit of a trade very similar in the past that they made, bringing in Josh Donaldson. Now, I would say Arenado's a better player, younger, better potential to be able to succeed in New York, but has shades of that type of acquisition for me. I think the preferred way to go for me would be to trade for Bellinger, sign a first baseman, whoever that might be, and then still try to sign Alex Bregman. I understand Yankees fans and their hesitation with signing Bregman, but for me, he would bring a lot of leadership to that clubhouse that is absolutely needed there. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Michael Caputo, welcome in, welcome in. Yankees lineup is horrible right now. They do have some significant holes in there. They have to be able to solve the issues in that lineup in regards to Juan Soto. They have nobody in that lineup to really solve it. Let me scroll back up here and see if I can answer some of these questions you guys have been asking here. What's taking so long for the Bellinger to the Yankees? It's the money. The deal is not dead. It's already agreed to as far as the players going each way. It's more a matter of what are they going to do financially. Are the Yankees willing to take all the money? Are the Cubs willing to pay down some of the salary? But it sounds like both the Yankees and Mariners have deals in place with the Chicago Cubs. It's more about whether or not the money is going to work out for the Yankees. That's the one sticking point, and it's, according to John Heyman anyway, a contest to see who blinks first. Let's see here. Who got a whole bunch of comments there. There we go. Thank you, moderator, for taking care of that spammer. Appreciate you. Welcome in, Chicago Bears. Let's see here. If Yankees fail to trade for Bellinger, then this was a massive fail for the Yankees. Sorry, but yeah, it's either Cody Bellinger or Bregman. If not, then the Yankees are not a playoff team. I still think they're a playoff team as currently constructed, or at least a team in the wild card contention. They have a very good rotation. Don't get me wrong. That rotation is lethal. They do need to solve that lineup, and I think they will add at least a couple of bats. You know, even if they don't sign Bregman and they don't trade for Bellinger, there are still ways that they can go out there and help their team. They're still in the market for Teoscar Hernandez. That would help their bat situation in the outfield. They're still in there for Walker. They could obviously trade for Lowe. There's a lot of options when it comes to the Yankees. I still think they're right on the edge of a playoff team, but they need to improve that lineup to really solidify their playoff chances. Wow, got 165 of you guys with us right now. Thank you guys for joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. Paul, you think any of the Padres position players gets traded? I do think there's a possibility of that. They're trying to focus on bringing in Profar right now, and then on the other hand, they're trying to do a little bit of selling as well, trying to trade Dylan Cease's deal, see if they can get a little bit of value out of that one. Sounds like they don't want to lose him for nothing in free agency, and with the prices right now, it sounds like they're going to do a lot of what they've done before. Remember when Preller first came in, he made all those great acquisitions, bringing in the Upton brothers, trading for Kimbrel. And then he gets to the deadline, they're out of contention. He turns around and flips those pieces, gets what he can for them. We saw that with Juan Soto. Spent a whole lot of capital to bring him in. Kept him for a couple years, didn't work. Looked like he was going to leave in free agency or at least test the market. They get 5 pieces in exchange for him and divest themselves of that situation. They get in on Luis Arraez. They get in on Dylan Cease. Now they're looking to divest themselves of those situations. So a little bit of buying and selling here for the Padres. St. Vintage, picking up Joey Manassas on a minor league deal was low-key nice depth for the Mets. Absolutely. I really like that addition by Stearns. It's going pretty well, Chicago. Appreciate you joining us. Yankees need a first baseman and third baseman. They do. Bader going back to the Yankees, you'd bet. That'd be a good bet for them because they do need some center field help. They weren't necessarily comfortable using them, though, as much as I thought they would. I still think he had a pretty good season last year. I think he's the top WAR guy available on the market, just looking at my numbers. I want to say he was like a 3.6 WAR guy last year, but that would be an upgrade for them in center. They may decide to go a little bit cheaper there in center field, maybe even go the trade route to solve that issue. But their goal is to primarily get Aaron Judge out of center field. Michael, if they don't get those 3, then the Yankees are not a playoff team. Sorry, but Max Fried and Devin Williams are not enough to be a playoff team. I think they're already good enough to be a wild card. Right now, you look at the very difficult AL East. They probably have the best rotation out of those teams. Orioles are nowhere to be seen. They have a lineup and nothing. Once they get to October, they're basically dead in the water. They need to get some starting pitching, and their Rays are going through a little bit of a tumultuous period for them, but they're still going to be an above 500 team, I do believe. The Red Sox are a better team. They still need to put the finishing touches on that roster, add one more bat, and then I'd say they've passed the Yankees. But for right now, they're better than the Blue Jays, and they're going to be right there with the Orioles and Red Sox at the top of that division. I wouldn't say they're not a playoff team right now. Retired 11.99. Yankees should trade for Bohm. That would be a nice trade for them. I have not heard the Yankees being connected to them, but Bohm's name has been bounced around. He'd solve their issues at third base, obviously for the Yankees. The question will be, what would they give up to the Phillies that would make this a trade that the Phillies would want to do? I'm not sure that side of it makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. Yankees lineup is horrible right now. Let's see here. Trying to go through a lot of these comments here. Let's see here. Push the like button. Thank you, Saint Vintage, for mentioning that. $30 million left on Bellinger's deal. Yes. Trying to catch up to some of these comments here. Welcome in, John. All right. Offense is a train wreck. I don't know about that. They still need to improve it. I think they will before the end of the offseason. Chicago, how much money does the Yankees want the Cubs to eat? I'm pretty sure they want the Cubs to eat half of that contract. Bellinger's making a lot of money right now, but the Yankees could stomach the money if they had to. I think they just don't want to have the money on their books. That way they can have some more roster flexibility more than anything else. Let's see here. $30 million left on Bellinger's deal. Casas traded to the Yankees. Not a chance. Steve, welcome in. Who are the players going to the Cubs in the Bellinger trade? We do not know those yet, but it does sound like, according to John Heyman, the players have been agreed to. Yankees pivot to Lowe, Naylor. I'm not going to watch a team next season that will not support them as a fan. Okay, Michael. That's a strong statement there. I do think Lowe would be a better option for the Yankees at first base than some of the others, but I would agree there. Bellinger would be a better option for them at first base. I think Lowe would be a little bit beneath that. I think Walker would be above Lowe. But when you're the Yankees, you can only go a certain number of directions. They still need to get an impact bat into that lineup, not just a league average bat in front of Aaron Judge. That was the problem the Yankees ran into last year, is that they didn't do enough offensively. They tried to address that at the deadline. Juan Soto took off after the deadline and helped them in the postseason, and now they don't have that. Basically, it's Aaron Judge and a bunch of question marks offensively for me. They need to get another bat in there. We'll see which direction they go. 1,800 subscribers. Absolutely, Mark. Thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate that. Tweak the lineup, Cashman. I agree there, Mr. Joyner. Thank you for joining us. If you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe. Welcome in, Mr. Festa. Alonso has a better year if he comes back to the Mets, in your opinion? I do. I think he's comfortable there. I think there's more lineup protection in there for him if he goes back to the Mets as well. Yankees have Trent Grisham at just over $5 million. What are you talking about? I think Trent Grisham isn't exactly an everyday player for them. I think they need to go a different direction out there, in the outfield. I think Grisham is a nice piece for them, but for me, he's a fourth outfielder, not an everyday piece for them. Let's see here. Scroll down a little bit more. I apologize if I'm missing some of these. So y'all are commenting quite a bit, and we got quite a bit of a show to get to. We'll try to get as many of these comments as we can. If you want us to make sure we get your comment, please feel free to send a super chat. We got so many people in here, it's going to be difficult to catch all of these. Bader, best defensive center fielder on the market somehow, and the Mets managed to upgrade its stud defender with a better one in Siri. I agree. Siri's a very good defender, an underrated trade or underrated addition that they made to that roster. Red Sox have a lot of money to spend. I'm surprised they haven't signed Burns. I would agree with you there, but their top target was Max Fried. They get the trade for Crochet. Now it seems like they're trying to target position players rather than the rotation. They have some good pitching right now. Good young pitching, and maybe they just want to give those guys a chance to grow in that rotation without taking up too many of those other spots in there. So maybe that's the idea for the Red Sox, to see if they can get this homegrown talent to really flourish and see what they got. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and then they add in free agency next year. But maybe that's the thought process there among the front office there. Let's see here. Stoneman, welcome in. What would a potential trade for a rise to the Yankees have to look like? I haven't heard any names being thrown around, but I'd imagine it'd have to be something decent going back the other way. A rise, to me, is a very good on-base guy who'd be incredible in front of any RBI-getting player. For instance, if Texas had him in front of Corey Seager, that offense would go a lot better. Same thing with the Kansas City Royals in front of Bobby Witt. Same thing with Juan Soto with the Mets, and same with New York Yankees and a Aaron Judge. Let's get to a few other news and notes out there anyway. We'll check in on the Mets. They've checked in and at least registered interest now in Griffin Canning. They've also addressed Walker Buehler and Sean Manaea, a bunch of different starters they've at least had a few conversations with as far as who they may bring in. We will see where they go. But for me, they still need to add another number 2 starter to that rotation. There's been conversations about them adding another starter on top of that as well. So for me, they still need to bring in a Sean Manaea, and there have been conversations about them going to a 6-man rotation. If they do, maybe Walker Buehler and Manaea go there. We had some conversations about that last night. I still think they run the risk of going down to a 5-man rotation after the deadline in an effort to try to ramp up for the postseason. I still worry about that. You always have to wonder about injuries. You have to have depth. I get all of those things, but they still need to add to that rotation. So the Mets are doing, exhausting all avenues to try to get that done as well. On the relief pitching market, we saw the Devin Williams trade go to the Yankees. Absolutely great trade for the Yankees and the Brewers. Love it for both sides. One of the few rare win-win trades that we've seen. Devin Williams, 1-year deal left, or 1 year on his deal left anyway, going to the Yankees. Probably one of the highest ceiling closers in the game right now. Emmanuel Clase has got to be in that same conversation, and a few others. But I really like the acquisition for the Yankees. Now, they still have more work to do back there. That's why they're still being connected to pretty much 8th inning or closer options, Tanner Scott being one of those guys. I would not be surprised if they went out there and tried to add another reliever of that high quality level, because that bullpen was part of the issue last year as to why they didn't win the World Series. Now for the Brewers, they needed to add some starting pitching. They bring in Nestor Cortez, get the Yankees to pay $2 million of that deal, and get a prospect out of it. I think Cortez has a far greater chance to sign an extension with the Brewers than Devin Williams ever was. So good deal overall. Really enjoy a baseball trade that we see. It's not just a straight prospect deal. For instance, I love the trade for Texas. They bring in Jake Berger, but it's not necessarily a baseball trade. You get a whole bunch of minor leaguers. You hope one of them works out. If you're the Marlins for the Texas Rangers, you get 4 years of a controlled player in Jake Berger. Meanwhile, this trade, you get a baseball trade. 2 major league pieces that are going to make an impact for both teams. And this trade, I think, is going to work out great for both of them. They still have more work to do in New York. I'm not saying it's a done deal, as far as, hey, this is the greatest team on the American League side. But I am saying it's a great first step to solve their bullpen issues, and it's a great second step to help solve their Juan Soto problem. They lost Juan Soto in free agency. Since then, they brought in Max Fried, brought back Jonathan Loaizinga. They brought in Devin Williams, and they're still going to add more pieces. I would expect them to add at least 2 bats to that lineup and another bullpen arm as well. We'll see which direction they go. They were looking big game for Kyle Tucker. They ultimately finished second place in that running, but it tells you they have their eye on big things this offseason. So I wouldn't hold it against the Yankees that they don't have a bat yet. We're still early in free agency. Winter meetings have just finished, but there's still so many bats in the on the free agent market, and then the trade market as well that they could dip into. I would not be surprised, that the Yankees get a couple of their top options in there at some point in the next few weeks. So keep your eyes peeled for what the Yankees ultimately chose to do. We've talked a little bit about the Chicago Cubs and their ability to possibly trade for a Castillo, move off of Bellinger. They also are interested in moving off of Suzuki, but they also have registered interest in a couple of different pieces as well. According to Chicago Cubs beat writers, they're going all in for 2025. Now, what does that mean for them? Well, of course, they've gone out there and spent big on the trade market anyway, bringing in Kyle Tucker. They gave up Paredes and a couple of good prospects in return. They have some money already invested in this team. They're looking for a number 5 starter. They've talked about Walker Buehler, but they're looking for some starting pitching. That's first and foremost what Jed Hoyer and the front office say they're looking for is starting pitching. To me, though, and according to John Heyman as well, he believes that they need some more hitting in that lineup. They need some more offense. Kyle Tucker should elevate that offense, but they gave away one of their best offensive pieces in Isaac Paredes to bring him in. So they still need to add to that lineup, and I expect they will. Thank you, moderator. That was quick. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. But the Cubs need to continue to add to that team if they're expecting to really push forward in 2025. Because right now, they're not a World Series team. Right now, I'd say they'd have a dogfight to try to win the NL Central. And the NL Central is not the best division on even the National League side. For me, the Dodgers are still far and away the best team on the National League side. The Mets and Phillies, Braves, and then the Padres probably be your 2 through 5. Nowhere in there did I say the Chicago Cubs, and I didn't even talk about the division-winning Milwaukee Brewers last year. So if the Cubs are all in for 2025, like their beat reporters say, they're going to have to do a lot more this offseason to make that happen. And it doesn't sound like they're in on Burns or Bregman or any of these other top pieces. Sounds like they're more interested in, back of the rotation options to kind of fill out this roster and then go about it via trades and save a little bit of money. See if they can, get a stopgap option there at third base. One other bit of news on the third base side of things for the Cubs is that Patrick Wisdom, former Chicago Cubs third baseman, who I thought might have been an option for them to replace Paredes at third base, he is now signed in the KBO, so he is not an option for them anymore. Let's see here. St. Vintage, the Mets are going to stretch Budo out as a starter and then go back to the pen if needed. Is also an option. True. Mets have some good depth options there in their bullpen, and Peterson, of course, had a good year last year. They have a lot of rotation options, but they still look a little bit light in that rotation. I would expect them to try to bring in at least a Sean Manaea type or a Walker Buehler, maybe both. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to go both directions. Let's see here. A couple other news and notes on the Chicago Cubs. They have checked in on Jesus Luzardo from the Miami Marlins. Did not have a good year last year. 6.5 ERA, I think, is what he had with the Marlins, but he was unhealthy for the majority of the year. This would be more of the Cubs trying to go a little bit cheaper in that number 5 spot in that rotation. Say they decide not to go for Castillo. Now they get Jesus Luzardo. Hope and pray he has a better year, gets back to form. And then they go out and spend on some hitters in that lineup. That would be the ideal solution, I think, for the Cubs at this point. You still got to wonder about what they're going to do with Bellinger. Who are they going to bring back in? What trade value do they have? Are they willing to eat the money on Bellinger or not? All those are in play as well. We touched on the Yankees quite a bit so far this show. Let's go ahead and get into some of the news and notes around the Yankees. They're contemplating some first base alternatives if they don't get Bellinger done. What do I mean by that? They're looking at all options, really. Alonso is one possibility. They're looking at Walker, Santana, Naylor, Lowe. I'm sure they're looking at Diaz on the trade market as well. A lot of opportunities there. Goldschmidt, maybe even a return with Rizzo. By no means is anything set in stone with the Yankees right now. To me, this reads a little bit like they're trying to, cool the waters around Bellinger a little bit. Say, hey, maybe you should eat a little bit of this money so we don't go out in free agency and try to sign one of these other options or in the trade market for one of these other options that are cheaper. While I think Lowe would be a great option for them, I still think Bellinger is probably the best option for them at first base. Second would be Walker. Even if they bring in Bellinger, I still think that still leaves them in the market for a first baseman if that market's a little bit better than, say, the outfield market. They don't really have a lot of great center fielders on the market this year. So say you put Bellinger out there in center field and you sign Walker, I think that would be a better route to go than trading for Bellinger and then signing Bader. So kind of Yankees are trying to walk and chew gum at the same time by addressing Bellinger trade and then making an addition in free agency as well. Welcome in Jonathan, Cliff. I appreciate you guys joining us for the first time. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe. Got 165 of you guys with us right now. Absolutely incredible, all the the chats that we have with you guys. So if you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe, it really does help us out. Probably one of the few baseball shows that you guys can actually access nowadays. MLB Network doesn't even cover the sport, even to the level I do, in my opinion, anymore. They got the Hot Stove Morning Show, which is basically a soundboard and unprofessional quirks, anyway, from Vasgersian at this point. Guys disinterested in the show and just trying to, talk some off-field stuff as far as, what's going on, what they're grilling and stuff. Fun, sure, but none of that is anything we have with what we discuss here. We're not talking speculation. We're not talking rumors. We're not getting reports from Ken Rosenthal anymore. The professionalism has really left that morning show, and then they've gotten rid of MLB Now. They got rid of High Heat. They got rid of all the other talk shows where we could have avenues to discuss the sport. So I appreciate you guys coming here, joining us. We're one of the few options that's left where you can really discuss baseball in the off season. We'll be here for you every single day the rest of the off season. Made that decision. We're going to stay here every single day and continue to have these lives update you on what's going on the market. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. It really does help us out, help us grow the channel. It's a lot of fun being able to chat with you. And now that we're having a lot more people join our chats, this is the third video, I think, in the last 3 days that we've had over 100 people with us and chatting furiously in there. It's hard to keep up with comments. Trust me, I tried, my friend, but it's a little hard to. So if you need your question answered or really want it to be answered, if you want to support the channel, we do have the super chat option available. I will make sure to answer your questions that are super chats. Otherwise, I'll still try to get to them, as many as I possibly can. Alrighty, let's see here. Ocean View, welcome in. Bregman fits perfect with the Mets. He would fit a third base need. Rizzo should be Cubs player again for a return retirement. We talked a little bit about that on the other show a couple of days ago about Rizzo being a possibility for them at first base if they trade Bellinger. They have a good option there in Bush right now, but Rizzo would be a good fallback option, a depth guy, bench guy for them, give them some leadership as well. But if they're pushing for 2025 to be a division winning team, a team that can compete in the postseason, I'm not sure how much that actually helps out. So, Rizzo could be on the farewell tour as well. Verlander, I think, is going to be going on a farewell tour this season. Scherzer could be going on a farewell tour this season. Goldschmidt, I think, is going to be able to rebound after a tough year this past season. I think he probably signs with the San Francisco Giants and has a good resurgent year, and then goes into free agency again and goes to one of these teams that needs a bat next offseason. But really do hope some of these guys, live up to the expectations of their farewell tours. But Bregman, I don't think is necessarily going to go to the Mets. I still think it's going to be Detroit, Toronto, and Boston for them. Mike, Yankees definitely do need two bats. I couldn't agree more there. They lose Juan Soto. You're not going to solve that issue by just trading for a Kyle Tucker. They miss on him. Or signing an Alex Bregman, still on the open market. But say you go out there and sign Bregman, you still bring in, say, Walker or trade for Bellinger. That would be a way to improve off of what you already have. We'll see which direction they go. John, great that you're a Ranger fan, but even better that you're able to discuss unbiased info for other teams. I really try for you, John. I try to be as very open and transparent as possible. I let you guys know, hey, I'm a Ranger fan. Take that with a grain of salt, and I try to be as objective as I possibly can. I get a lot of pushback from Yankees, Mets fans, Phillies, Dodgers, pretty much any of these big market teams. I get pushback from some of the smaller markets. I remember during the season I was discussing what the Pirates should be doing with a couple of different of our regular viewers. I get pushback from all fan bases. I'm comfortable. I can take it. That's what this is for. We can discuss where these teams are going to go as far as their offseason, trades that they could make, how they could improve their roster. And this is where we get to have fun and discuss these kinds of things. You don't get that anymore anywhere else. You ain't getting that at MLB Tonight. You ain't getting that on Hot Stove, the MLB Network. And nobody else really covers baseball anymore on the national media landscape besides maybe podcasts. So, we're here for you at the Upside. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll keep you updated all off-season long, every single transaction. Any big transaction that happens will immediately go live. We've talked about Corbin Burns. Once he signs, we will get that one done as well. Let me go ahead and update our Twitter page, see if anything is happening at the moment. A lot of talk about Tucker still, and a bunch of nothing at the moment. Alrighty, Edgar, welcome back. Welcome back. You a baseball fan, and that's all that matters. Absolutely. If you're a baseball fan, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be here for you. You're whatever fan base you are, we gladly accept you as part of our group. We'll be more than happy to accept you here. George, Giants should look into Framber Valdez. Your comment just went off my screen. Even if they sign Burns, I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that, but I think they would do that in the offseason. I don't think they should be looking to trade for it. I think bringing in Burns and Adames already is a great offseason for them. I still think they would go out there and bring in a guy like Goldschmidt to solve their first base issues, but that would be a great offseason already for the Giants. I think trading away pieces for Valdez could be a slight misstep for them. I would rather go after him in free agency, just like Kyle Tucker. Welcome back, Dom. Appreciate you for joining us. What are your thoughts on Nathaniel Lowe to the Yankees? Honestly, I would love it for both sides. Rangers would save a little bit of money on Nathaniel Lowe, but they would have an issue at first base. So if they traded him away, you have to find somebody else to replace him with. There are tons of options on the free agent market to go out there, but none of them at the level of Nathaniel Lowe. For the Yankees, they would be getting a low-cost option for them at first base. I think there are better options for them. Bellinger, probably number 1. Walker, number 2. For me, Alonso would be kind of a weak number 3 for me because I think he's more likely going back to the Mets. But Lowe would still be on that list as guys who I would consider an upgrade for them at first base. I think being a left-handed hitter would work well in that Yankee Stadium, and I think it'd work out well for both sides. I just don't think the Yankees are ready to do that at this point, and it's going to take a little bit of time before they would get to the point where a guy like Nathaniel Lowe might be more appealing than, say, a guy like Walker on the free agent market. So we'll see, what happens there. All right, let's get into a few of these other headlines. I told you guys I had a heck of a show planned for you guys. We talked a little bit about the Vlad Guerrero Jr. market. We talked quite a bit about Burns, the Giants being the favorite there. Alonso getting his market up to 6 years, $185 million. Relief market looking like it's going to get moving here soon. The Yankees, Cubs, Mariners talks. We've talked a lot about the Orioles as well in recent days. We talked a lot about the Astros. One thing I wanted to touch on is the Texas Rangers. You guys know I'm a fan of them, But I wanted to get you guys, that I do have quite a few Rangers fans in our chat. I wanted to update you guys on where they stand, names they've been connected to in just the last 48 hours. I'm going to have to get my paper here and read it because it's quite a few. AJ Minter, reliever. Chris Martin, the reliever. Jock Peterson, left field. Kirby Yates as a closer. Corbin Burns as a starter. Max Scherzer as a starter. Andrew Heaney as a starter. Robertson as a closer, eighth inning guy. And Carlos Estevez as well as an eighth inning guy. So those are some of the names the Texas Rangers have been connected to in just the last 48 hours. Some more than others. Martin sounds like a decent option. They've had some success with him in the past. Minter sounds like another type of signing that they've done before that they've had success with. Think of what they just did with Kirby Yates, 1 year, $4.5 million. Could be very well what we see here from Minter. Burns, of course, would be the biggest piece that's out there. If they were able to be, somehow the mystery team in there and pull him off the market, away from the Giants and the Blue Jays, incredible move, but they'd have to make other moves after that to solve their issues in the bullpen, because then they wouldn't have any money to really go out there and do it. That's one big option out there. Jock Peterson has been connected to them. Evan Grant mentioning the reports yesterday. Max Scherzer to a lesser extent, but he would definitely have to take a huge discount. He would just mainly have to say, hey, I want to be in Texas, and basically sign for $10 million. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Heaney, same thing. He's going to have to take a little bit of a discount, but he could be, a guy that hangs around on the free agent market, like we saw with Nathan Eovaldi years ago. And the Rangers just say, hey, this is some really good depth. He was really good for us. Management loves him. Pitching staff really wants to have him, or the pitching coach really wants to have him on that roster as well. Because remember, the Rangers really like stuff. So those are kind of your headlines on the Rangers. One other thing I wanted to get into before we kind of recap everything that's happened so far at the winter meetings and up till now, and then kind of go over the headlines from today, is what's really left on the free agent market. We always talk about, there's all these free agents out there, but these, top 5 or 6 guys, and that's it, that really are a difference maker. Question for you on Mike there just says, anyone in on Trevor Bauer? I'm sure teams would love to have the player Trevor Bauer, but all the off-field issues are a big issue for a lot of clubs right now. He's been out of the game for so long. I think teams are just done at this point, and he's just stuck playing independent ball. I watch a lot of his videos that he posts every now and again just to see how good his stuff still is, just in case he does sign somewhere. I just don't think a team is willing to take that risk. A team is not going to be comfortable with that level of risk. Paranormal, why I hear rumors for Josh Naylor? It's because the Guardians have said they want to push the pedal down this year. They realized they had a really good team last year, and they had a really good chance to win the series. Even with a difficult National League opponent in the Dodgers and the Phillies being seen as a behemoth, now the Mets are as well. Yankees have taken a little bit of a step back. Orioles look like they've taken a little bit of a step back. They have a really good roster right now, and the moves that they've made this offseason have only helped out. Now, the reason why everybody thinks that Naylor could be available is that they're looking to make one big piece, one big acquisition to their lineup. Kyle Tucker type of a piece, somebody that's a big time impact, comes in there and changes the dynamic for the Guardians. If there's not that player out there, I don't think they ultimately do it. Jordan, welcome back. What's the latest on Corbin Burns? It sounds like the San Francisco Giants are the leader there. In case you guys are just joining us, we just crossed the 1 hour mark. I'll go ahead and recap you guys. Corbin Burns looks like the heavy favorite right now for the San Francisco Giants. However, the Blue Jays are still in there. Meanwhile, a mystery team as well, according to John Heyman. He speculates it could be the Texas Rangers. Other reports say that it could be the Boston Red Sox. But for me, this is a heavy favorite right now for the San Francisco Giants. I was looking up last night after one of you guys commented on one of my videos that there was a post made and deleted by Corbin Burns, and I was actually able to find the report. I can't remember if it was Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but anyway, he posted a picture of him on the Golden Gate Bridge, saying, feels like home. And starting pitcher Logan Webb, basically, liked the post and whatnot, and tells me a lot about where his mindset is at right now. If that report ultimately turns out to be true, then it sounds like the Giants are right on the 1-inch line of getting this one done. We could see that deal, finish later on this today or tomorrow. But I still think it's a three-team race right now between the Giants, the Blue Jays, and whoever this third mystery team could possibly be. Christopher, welcome in. Any news? I happen to just join. Not too much news today. Small bits of news anyway. Wisdom going to the KBO, and then a small trade anyway between the Pirates and Red Sox. Valdez going to the Pirates, I believe, in that one. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Really does help us out. Got about 135 of you guys in the chat right now. If you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to send them in the chat. We have a very active chat today, so if you want to make sure that I read off your question or answer your question, please feel free to send a super chat if you would like. It really does help out the channel, and I do appreciate your support if and when you give it. So thank you guys for liking the video and subscribing. I wanted to go over a couple of different options on the free agent market. Like I said a minute ago, there are so many free agents out there, we forget there's a lot of depth out there. For instance, catching is down across Major League Baseball, yet there's probably 3 or 4 options that teams could use as a backup catcher. Grandal, 36 years old, had a 1.5 WAR season last year. He'd be a good number 2 catcher for somebody out there. Diaz has always been good offensively. Again, maybe because of he played in Colorado, but he would be a good depth option behind the plate for somebody out there. Second base, you got players like what did I write down there? Walker, or no, that's first base. Wrong base anyway. First base, Walker, Alonso, probably your top 2 options. Goldschmidt as well. Turner, Solano, Joe, those are some of the other options out there. Rizzo, Gallo, France, Bell, and Gurriel are all free agents at the first base spot. First base doesn't usually get paid anymore, not nearly at the levels that we're used to seeing. This might be the first serious step up that we've seen for a first base contract since Freddie Freeman. What do I mean by that? Freddie Freeman signed that $150 million contract. Since then, basically first base has been a forgotten position when it comes to free agency. Sure, teams still want to have that power, but they're willing to wait until January, February, try to pick off 1 or 2 guys who might sign for less when it gets to that point. Now we're starting to get guys that you can't wait for. Guys like Pete Alonso. Next year we're going to have Vlad Guerrero Jr. Pete Alonso was expected coming into free agency to get around $130 million or so, 125. Now it looks like with the Juan Soto signing that the money across the game for free agency is up across the board. His contract now looks like 6 years, $180 million. Could get to 6 for $185, according to Ken Rosenthal. That would be a great deal for Pete Alonso. Basically a one-trick pony as far as a hitter. Really good power, translates on the field. Defense is a little bit of a question mark. Not a great base runner, hits into a lot of ground balls, does not hit for average. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is kind of the opposite of that. Still has power, but he's defensively versatile. You can play him at third or first. A little bit better defensively at first base. A little bit better speed as well. And he's going to have that dynamic bat. And reports out there say he's already turned down a $340 million contract. Big numbers coming across the board for some first basemen. So some of these other first basemen that are out there, one-year options that could fill a spot if they're interested in Vlad Guerrero Jr. next year might be a good signing. For instance, we talk about Goldschmidt trying to rebuild his value, say with the San Francisco Giants, say he does that. Then they're still in the market for a first baseman next year, possibly bring him back, or they could sign a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr. The Giants really need to improve that offense. They did a nice job starting that process with Willy Adames. I think that's their big domino this year. If they get Corbin Burnes on the pitching side, boom, just great offseason for them. And then you kind of put the finishing touches on that offense next year with a Kyle Tucker, with a Vlad Guerrero Jr., with a Bo Bichette. There's a lot of opportunities for the Giants to improve both this year and next. They are not done. Welcome in, Robbie. Welcome in. Let's see here. Do you think the Cubs will trade Bellinger? I absolutely do think Bellinger will be on the move. In case you guys are just joining us, it looks like the trades have basically been agreed to for Bellinger right now. Yankees and Mariners both have deals in place currently for Bellinger. It's a matter of whether or not the Cubs are willing to retain salary in either of those deals, or if the Yankees or Mariners just bite down on the entirety of that contract. For the Mariners, I think that's an absolute non-starter. They have a hard budget of $15 million coming from multiple beat reporters, including Ryan Divish, that reports on the Seattle Mariners. $15 million, by the way, less than what Bellinger's going to be making next year. Obviously, they're going to have to offload some salary and be able to do it. Or they're going to have to get the Cubs to be able to eat some of that salary. Same thing for the Yankees. They would have the money to be able to bring in Bellinger, but they don't necessarily want to do so. They don't see the need to do so. They think the Cubs should be able to eat a little bit of that deal in order to make it more palatable for the Yankees to get this deal done. Would not be surprised to see if this one takes a day or two as these teams kind of have a little bit of a staring contest. But I do think it's going to get done very quickly here. I don't think it's going to be something that lingers and lingers and lingers this postseason. We will have an answer on Bellinger this week. Just a matter of when at this point. Other free agents that are available, second baseman Torres, probably the top of the heap there. A couple others that are kind of depth options, more bench guys at this point. Shortstop, you got guys like Iglesias, DeYoung, bench guys again. Kim, probably the one big name coming over from the NPB anyway. Third base, Rojas, 31 years old, had a 3 WAR last year. He'd be a good option for a team that needs offense. Looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates, maybe he'd be a good fit to kind of fill in as kind of a depth piece. Utility type player for them. They already have a third baseman locked in there. As far as left field, you got Profar, of course, being connected heavily with the San Diego Padres, but there's a few other guys to keep in mind there. Verdugo's a free agent. Pham as well, Hayes and Canna. Center field, Bader, probably the top of the heap there, had a 3-WAR season last year. Taylor had a great year with the Pirates and Twins the last couple of years. Really improved his offensive profile, has always been a good defensive center fielder. In the right field, you have a couple of guys that are at the top of the market in Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, but then you get guys like Max Kepler, Grichuk, players like that, but there's still some depth out there. And then DHs, you get JD Martinez, Jock Peterson, Kutch, you get Vogelbach, Eloy Jimenez, and Matt Carpenter. Those are kind of the top names there on the free agent market. Those are just the hitters that are out there in free agency. Not to mention all the trade possibilities that are out there. We mentioned Nolan Arenado being available, Cody Bellinger we've been talking about quite a bit as well. So there's lots of opportunities to improve in this market. Vlad's going nowhere. Those reports seem bogus. I would just say that Vlad is going to be going to free agency. If they're able to make a postseason run, maybe he ultimately goes there. Maybe the reports are erroneous about the $340 million deal being rejected. Maybe he resigns there for $400 million. Who knows? But for anybody to say they have a pulse on where Vlad is going to go next year, I think is lying to themselves. I think a lot depends on how things go this year. Not to say that if the Blue Jays win, he stays. If they lose, he goes. Nothing like that. I just think this year is going to tell a lot to Vlad Guerrero Jr. where he wants to go. If he wants to stay in Toronto, even in a bad situation or in a losing situation, or if he wants to go elsewhere. There's going to be a lot that's going to be made over the next 365 days as to how Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s free agency is going to go. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you for joining us once again. If an owner like Steinbrenner said to spend money, he didn't listen, he'd be fired. I'm glad he's taking heat because the opportunity is here to make the Orioles a lot better for Elias. Absolutely. I mean, the Orioles have the opportunity to really create a dynasty right now. They have a really good team right now built the way it is, and they're not investing in that starting rotation. This is something we've talked about quite a bit, but you look at that roster. Adley Rutschman is probably the most valuable piece on that roster because he's an offensive force that you have at a position where nobody has an offensive force behind the plate, and Rutschman is the best of the group. While he's still able to play behind the plate, you have a positional advantage having him in the lineup at catcher. When he plays at first base or at DH, he's less of an impact bat because that's expected to be an impact position for you offensively. Catcher then would be a downgrade for you, whoever you put behind the plate. You have Gunnar Henderson on a cheap deal right now. You have Holiday that's going to be coming up. Your team is ready to win right now. You have the talent on the roster. And yet their best pitcher in their rotation is Grayson Rodriguez and Zach Eflin. Where's the ace of this staff? They've traded both times over the last couple of years for guys who were on expiring deals. Jack Flaherty obviously didn't work out. Flames out, goes to the Detroit Tigers, has a great first half with them, goes on to the Dodgers, has a pretty good second half as well. He's supposedly on the radar now for the Baltimore Orioles as an option if they lose Burns, which looks like it's going to happen. This year, they go out there and they trade for Burns. At the time, they knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You had to know that going into that. You also had to take into account, hey, are we comfortable going ahead and spending, say, 7 years at $30 million a season on Burns when he hits free agency? You had to be comfortable at that number then. So my question for the ownership group and Elias there, the front office in Baltimore, if you were comfortable then, why are you not comfortable now? Are the numbers so astronomical that, things aren't going to work out? No, the numbers are still basically what they were, which tells me they weren't necessarily comfortable with the numbers at that time when they made the trade, which gives me even more pause about this organization. Elias has done a great job bringing up, prospects as far as position players. He has struggled developing pitching, but he's done a great job with prospects and draft. But he has not spent the money at the major league level really on anybody. He went out there and brought in Craig Kimbrell last year on a cheap one-year deal because they had a hole to fill at the back of the bullpen. They go out this year and bring in Tyler O'Neill for half the cost of what Anthony Santander is going to cost here. So they save some money there. In the thought process, you think, hey, they're going to bring back Corbin Burns because they saved some money. Okay, they're going to have a pitching staff that's just fine. And it looks like the Orioles aren't even one of the finalists here. What's going on with Baltimore? Now, because they made the trade, they had to have been willing to, or at least you would hope they had been willing to sign him when they made the deal for Burns. If you're telling me right now that they were not willing to re-sign him and just traded the prospects in order to have 1 year of Corbin Burns and hope maybe he gets hurt, maybe he has a bad year, we can sign him for a cheaper deal, as opposed to a long-term deal, it just doesn't make sense when you look at it from that perspective. You have to realize you're going to lose those assets if he leaves in free agency. And it looks like that's what's going to happen here. And it's for the second year in a row they've done so. The biggest issue for this is because it short-circuits their future as a team. Continuing to trade prospects and not re-sign players at the major league level to fill those holes, is going to circuit your championship window. Say you had been able to sign Corbin Burnes, and you don't have to go out there and trade for a Dylan Cease or another starting pitcher out there. You hold on to those pieces, because when those other players that are on your roster that are cheap now, that ultimately hit free agency and need to get paid again, those guys, maybe you lose them in free agency. Now you have the prospects from within to be able to keep the roster a little bit cheaper, keep that team going on a championship trajectory. But instead of having those guys to replace those guys when they hit free agency, you're not willing to pay them when they get to free agency, so you're going to lose them. You don't have the pieces within your organization to replace them as well. Now you've short-circuited your championship window, and things are not going well for the Orioles, for me. They have to solve their issues in that starting rotation. They have to be willing to spend money in free agency. Burnes is the guy I would have done it for, and honestly, I don't think they're going to get it done. I don't think they're the surprise mystery team in there, but for me, a big miss here by the Orioles. They have some questions to answer. One other bit of news, but before we kind of wrap up the free agents that are left on the market right now with starting pitchers and relief pitchers that I wanted to get into. I was very hard on the New York Yankees and their players anyway in their pursuit of Juan Soto. Reason being because after Juan Soto was signed, they had the press conference at Citi Field, and Juan Soto basically said, hey, Yankees players, I hadn't contacted anybody since the end of the season. So I got pretty hard on him, and I said, hey, why aren't you reaching out to the top player in free agency? He was just on your team. If you're friends, if you're teammates, if you're boys, why are you not reaching out to the guy and at least inviting him out for a drink, taking him to a movie, going over to his place and hanging out? Why are you not saying, hey, at very least, hey, we'd love having you here this year. We'd love to have you back next year. Why were none of those conversations had by a single member of that Yankees organization? Sure, the front office was doing it, but why wasn't Aaron Judge specifically making the calls? We heard all season long how Aaron Judge and Juan Soto were, two peas in a pod, two brothers. If they're two brothers, why hadn't he contacted him in a month and a half? Sure, Aaron Judge might be a private person and want some space for him after the year, but you're the face of the organization, Aaron Judge. Why are you, specifically, a guy that's supposed to be boys with Juan Soto, who just went through the process himself of free agency and almost left to go to San Francisco, why are you not reaching out to Juan Soto's camp? Now, understandably, Juan Soto came back a day later, said, hey, my numbers changed. I get it. They didn't have to contact me. But then, if you're boys, you give the guys your number that you want to be able to still contact you. Tells me he didn't want to be heard from, or he didn't want to hear from those guys on that team. He wanted them to reach out to him, if anything at all. The Yankees had the number. Aaron Judge could have got the number from them. His agent had the number. He could have gotten the number there. It's just a matter of that they didn't reach out to Juan Soto, the most impactful player in this year's free agency. The greatest contract in sports history gets signed, and not a single time in a month and a half after making it to the World Series does a single player reach out to the best player on the market. That's a problem for New York, and that's why I say Aaron Judge still needs to answer some questions as to why that was not done. I'm not going to give him a full pass on that. Just because you change phones does not give you a pass for not reaching out to a guy that's this important to your ball club for a month and a half. I saw a couple of people in the chat on my video after I posted the video and finished our live saying, aren't you going to walk back your thoughts now that he's, it's come out that he changed his phone number? No. If anything, it just makes it even worse. It tells me Juan Soto did not want to give his number to them. It tells me that it wasn't a big enough of a priority for Aaron Judge and the players on that team to get the number to him and reach out and hang out. Simple as that. It's just the way it is. Yankees have some questions to answer. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in baseball. I'm not saying that they're not still a good team. I'm not saying that this can't be solved. But it is a problem that was not there it was not there a week ago. We didn't know that he hadn't been reached out to. And if we had, the New York beat reporters should have been on this one like white on rice from the beginning. Why hasn't Aaron Judge reached out? We saw at the end of season exit interview with Juan Soto. Juan Soto had his hat on backwards, so the Yankee symbol wasn't saying. And then the reporter asked him, hey, do you have any idea where you want to sign? Would you give the Yankees, final bidding, all those kinds of things? And of course, Juan Soto did what his agent would want him to say. Hey, I just want to, leave it up to my agent. We'll discuss all this in the offseason, blah, 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 blah. Didn't really give up any indication, but there was no pushback from any of his teammates to try to reach out to him. If you guys were boys for 162 games and made a World Series run, you'd at least invite the guy out for a drink, maybe go see a new movie that you like, hang out at a bar, go over hang out at the guy's house, grill outside, go on a vacation somewhere like a lot of teams do after the season is over. None of that was done with Juan Soto, and that's why I want to hear from Aaron Judge specifically why that was not done. Were you guys really boys, or was that just a horse of crock anyway, coming from the New York media, trying to make it sound like you want to stay there, making it sound like it's a perfect fit, and ultimately he leaves for the New York Mets, a team 8 miles away that's, going to be on the same page as you guys. I mean, it's a difficult situation. I get it. I'm not saying that this is the worst thing that the Yankees have ever done. I'm not even saying that it's, going to restrict them from signing guys. But it's something that they wouldn't have had to deal with if one of their guys had just reached out to them. It wouldn't even have been a talking point. Hey, yeah, Aaron reached out. I was busy. I didn't really want to hang out at that point. Sure. But at least they would have made the call. And they didn't do that. Leaves a lot for us to think about. Welcome in, Jonathan. Nimmo got Juan Soto's number somehow. Exactly. That's my point. Guys who weren't even on the team or on his team that found a way to get his number. Nimmo found it. A guy, Donovan Mitchell, even had his number as well. So at a certain point, he changed his number. All those guys seem to figure out how to get his number. We'll see. But I still think the Yankees have done a nice job this offseason, even after losing Juan Soto with the addition of Fried and Williams. I still think they need to add a couple of bats to that lineup. We'll see which direction they go. All right, just to kind of wrap up our discussion on the free agents that are available, let's go over some starting pitchers real quick. Top of the market still has to be Burns. Then Sasaki, for me, again, is going to sign after the 15th of January. Flaherty, Manaea, other names to keep in mind are, of course, Verlander, Heaney, Scherzer, Kershaw, Quintana, Lorenzen, Canning, Lynn, Williams, Quantrill, Miley, DeSclafani, Perez, Flexen, Stripling, Means, Herman, Davies, Lyle, Buehler, Soroka, and Urena. A lot of names out there on the starting pitching market. A lot of those guys are probably going to be multi-inning relievers, spot starters, back of the rotation starters at best. There's a couple of difference makers in there. Obviously, Burns being one, Manaea two, Buehler could be in that same category. Sasaki is going to be an impact wherever he decides to go after the January 15th opening of international bonus pool money. But there's a lot of options out there for a lot of teams to add some depth to their rotations. So just because you haven't solved your rotation issues yet doesn't mean that there's not some good options out there. Looking at the Baltimore Orioles, they do need top-end talent. They don't need a number 5 or 6 starter. They don't need a guy to come in and mop up duty. They need somebody at the top of that rotation to take the ball in Game 1 or Game 2 of a postseason series. They don't have that right now. That's why Burns is one of the few guys that's out there right now that fits that description. Manaea doesn't really fit that description as a number 1. Maybe a number 2. You look at Walker Buehler, he's done it before, but he's got injury issues, poor performance issues. He needs to be in a very competitive environment, so I think he's a good option out there. But then the pool gets really thin there. Pivetta is another one that's had some good track record of success in the majors. But then you're talking about guys that are somewhat more reclamation projects or, 5th, 6th options in a rotation. Perez at this point, probably a long reliever. Maybe a minor league deal. Quantrill, probably more of a long relief option, 5th, 6th starter. DeSclafani, same thing. Means probably the same thing. He's been connected to the Red Sox recently, so that would kind of make sense there with their young pitching staff, bringing in a low-cost option who can be a starter if needed or come out of the bullpen as well. So there's some good starting pitching there, but for teams that are looking at the top of the market, looking at the Blue Jays, looking at the Giants, the Red Sox, the Orioles that all need top-of-the-rotation starters, there's only one of those guys really left aside from Sasaki, and Sasaki could literally go anywhere. You can't count on him right now. That's why the Rangers went out there and got Eovaldi to at least solidify that rotation. They're not going out there and trying to be aggressive on a Heaney right now because they're still trying to lure Sasaki, and they have flexibility right now to where they could move Jack Leiter to the bullpen if necessary if they brought in a Roki Sasaki. They could trade a John Gray if Corbin Burns came in. They have some flexibility there. The Yankees have done a great job with their rotation. They dealt from a position of strength in their rotation with Nestor Cortez because they have Rodon, they have Cole, they have Fried, they have Stroman, Schmidt, among others. Luis Gil as well in their starting rotation. So these teams that need to get some top-end starters out there, there's only a limited supply left, and they better get it done. But it looks like the Giants could very well be closing in on Burns, and then you're left with Manaea as the best option outside of Roki Sasaki. That's not going to get it done if you're the Baltimore Orioles. You start Manaea in Game 1. For me, you're already losing Game 1. As good as Manaea is, he's probably at best right now a number 2 in a rotation. At worst, probably a number 4. But I would still like the signing for Baltimore, but they need more than just Sean Manaea. Even if they signed a Walker Buehler as well, they would still need more, which is why I think Corbin Burns is kind of a make or break free agent right now for the O's. I don't think they're in there, and it looks like the Giants are the favorite there. We'll see when the deal gets done. Let's go ahead and head over to Twitter, see if anything is happening at the moment. Let me pull it up for you guys. Update our page. And a bunch of nothing today, unfortunately, it looks like. We'll head over to MLB Trade Rumors, see if anything is happening there. A little bit of talk about the Yankees first base search. that was kind of one of our final things I wanted to get to anyway, is that the Yankees are still looking for first base updates besides Cody Bellinger. Bellinger, of course, looks like their top option. Christian Walker as well, I think would be a 1A, 1B there. But they still have interest in Pete Alonso. They still have interest in Naylor as far as a trade, Nathaniel Lowe. On the free agent market, they're still looking at Santana. There's a lot of ways that they can choose to improve first base. I think Santana, to Yankees fans, would be an absolute no as far as an upgrade for them. To me, they need to get an improvement, a bigger improvement than that. They need to bring in a Bellinger. They need to bring in a Walker, somebody of that ilk to come in and make a difference in that offense. They need 2 impact bats, not just league average bats. We're talking about guys that you come into the lineup and can give you some protection around Aaron Judge. Right now, there's not really a lot of protection in that lineup. They need some defense at third base as well. That's why Bregman, I think, would check off the box for defense on the infield, especially after you bring in Max Fried, a ground ball pitcher. Improving that left side of your defense or left side of your infield defensively would do miles of good for that team and that pitching staff. And then, of course, you talk about the leadership abilities of Bregman. I don't think you'd have that same issue about Juan Soto not getting a call from one of his teammates if Bregman had been one of those teammates. Judge, as quiet as he is, at a certain point you got to open up a little bit and say, hey, Juan, just to give you a call, I'm in Cabo or whatever, but I just want you to know it's important to me that you come back to the Yankees. Something like that, and he didn't even bother. I get it. He wanted to let the guy, go through his free agent process, respect his ability to go through it. But at a certain point, you just say, hey, man, we'd love to have you back. Hey, we're friends. Let's go hang out. Hey, we're friends. Let's go ahead and I got I got steaks on the grill anyway. Come over. I got some steaks for you. He didn't do any of that. At a certain point, either they're boys or they're not. So are they boys or are they not? But appreciate you guys joining us this afternoon. Not a whole lot happening on a Sunday afternoon. Hopefully we'll have some more with our update this evening, so make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live a little bit later on this evening tonight. I'm hoping that we get some more transactions, so I'm going to wait until late this evening to do my live. We'll probably start around 9:30, 10 o'clock, a little bit later than I like to start my lives, especially on a weekend, but we will be live for you guys then, so make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Join us on Twitter at UpsideSN or X or whatever they want to call themselves. Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. We've gained quite a few guys to our community over the last few days. Yesterday alone, I believe we gained 75 new subscribers. Incredible the turnout you guys have had. It's been a great week. Winter meetings, greatest contract in professional sports history. 15 years, $765 million. A lot of good trades out there as well that we've seen come through. Kyle Tucker, probably the biggest name in trade that's been moved. Max Fried gets this deal done with the Yankees. Rangers have since pivoted to bring back Nathan Eovaldi. Astros move off of Kyle Tucker. A lot of movement out there. Bellinger is still out there. But yes, Central Time mark. We will be live for you guys around 9:30-ish, right around there. So make sure you guys join us for our live. Hopefully Corbin Burnes will sign before that. We will immediately come live if he does. But hopefully we have some news to actually discuss this evening. We'll probably finish up our last news and notes anyway for the winter meetings. A lot of rumors have come to surface since the winter meetings have ended. Appreciate you guys joining us. Welcome in Johnny and Joe. Appreciate you guys. I think that's the first time I've seen Joe comment there. Aaron Judge did answer that question, or answer that before Juan said it. I have not seen that answer, so if you wouldn't mind, send it to me. You guys can send it in our chat. Would love to see it. But Soto wore his hat backwards every single post game in 2024. Sure, but when it's an exit interview, it's a little bit more pronounced when he does it that way. Players wear their hats backwards all the time, but when you're in an exit interview, it says a lot. It telegraphs a lot. If he was interested in trying to stay with the Yankees, I think he would have been making more of an effort to show that he would want to stay around there. Not that he wants to compromise the offers that he would get, but some of the questions that he was getting, he answered perfectly for the way his agent wanted him to answer that. Players usually don't do that. They're not that good at holding to a line when it comes to their ability to stay on a team. For instance, you'll get Cowboys players are notorious for saying, yeah, I really want to stay with the Cowboys because Jerry Jones, once you're one of Jerry Jones's boys, you're going to get paid. Other franchises have done the same thing. Say like the Boston Celtics have a free agent coming up. You'll hear them say, well, yeah, I really want to stay with Boston, but of course I'm open to other teams. Kyrie even said that. And we don't exactly view him as a pinnacle of what you want to look at from a free agent perspective. What you want to look at is from a player perspective. Kyrie's grown a lot since then, but players that don't have necessarily the charisma or at least the cachet to handle those types of situations as well as others. Soto handled it impeccably. Could speak to how well he handles business, sure. But players usually aren't wired that way, and it says a lot that he went that far to not allow, any type of leaning one way or the other to any type of this process. He was very deliberate in everything he does. He's the same way on the field. He didn't show any favoritism to the Yankees after the season ended. Once that final out was recorded in the World Series, it was straight business for Juan Soto, and that was an opportunity there to at least make it more familiar to Juan Soto that, hey, we want you back. We saw the celebration in the hot tub for Juan Soto, pouring champagne or whatever all over him. He likes to have fun. You can tell it, but he's still a very good, very deliberate gentleman, and he executed his plan, got where he wanted to go. Maybe he wanted to go to the Mets the whole time, but it would have been better if the Yankees had reached out. At least the players would have been. It would have been better if the players had reached out on that team to at least generate more of a positive feeling around the organization. We didn't even talk about the suite issue or the off the field issue for his mother with the Yankees last year as well. All of those things all those things factored into Soto's decision. I'm not saying one was more important than the other. Ultimately, I'm sure the money was the biggest factor, but those didn't necessarily help the situation for the Yankees. So appreciate you guys joining us today. We'll be live for you guys, like I said, around 9:30. We'll see you guys then. Y'all have a great one.